Like the video in 5 seconds or Evil Fred will show up at your house. Season 10. Season X? Season X. Because apparently that sounds way cooler. It's hard to believe it was 9 whole seasons ago that we were all little Jonesies that really had no idea how much the game would change. I mean, think of all the adventures we've been on. All the places we've gone. We've gone to the farmlands, the desert, the sky, and even the Arctic. Things have heated up. Like actually, there's a volcano and now an asteroid above us. But now it's time to take a trip down memory lane. It's time for us to break down the top 10 Fortnite seasons from worst to best in Fred's opinion. I have no part in this, what? Shut up, Fred. Oh, hey, by the way, they're selling this guy that looks like Batman and the Great Saiyaman in the item shop, so use code T5G or else the Joker will start telling jokes and they'll be worse than mine. Ooh. Number 10? Season 4. So this was the season that a lot of Fortnite OG players would call the very first season that was packed full of Fortnite storylines. Season 3 had been a little bit of a build-up, but it was Season 4 that created the pattern of map changes at the beginning of every season, bringing us the complete and utter destruction of the OG factories and Dusty Depot turning into Dusty Divot. We were introduced to brand new features like Hop Rocks within the crater that gave you an anti-gravity effect for a short time, and this was also the season of superheroes. They filled the battle pass with iconic superheroes you've probably all seen at some point, but given that Fortnite paint job, Carbide was a great example of this, showing what their own Iron Man version would look like. But as the season progressed, the comet that had landed at Dusty was slowly being excavated until it revealed a metal capsule within. Shortly after, as the season was getting closer to its end, we had our actual first in-game event, the rocket launch. It was jam-packed on the servers, and I even missed it due to 15-minute login queues, but it was beyond what anyone else had imagined. The visitor sent a rocket to blow up Tilted, but then it got sent through multiple rifts, disappearing and reappearing all around the map until eventually shooting straight upwards and leaving a giant rift in the sky for Season 5. Can you guess what number 9 is? It's Season 3. Did you guess wrong? Let me know in the comments. So this is what I'd call the prep season. Season 3 was essentially when Epic Games slowly started taking the steps necessary to show that there's more to this Battle Royale survival game than just, well, survival.
The $1 stylus deal.
Nice to meet you. Perfect.
What?
Or you could get a real deal. McDonald's, buy one, get one for a...
Near the beginning, players began to notice a strange large star up in the sky that no one had really seen before. But as the days and weeks went on, we all realized it was indeed no star, but in fact a comet, which made a lot of sense considering all the space-themed skins in the Battle Pass. Let's also not forget about the legendary Reaper skin. Now, you could see the meteor getting larger as it got closer. With a lot of distant storyline events, you can actually aim at them and they'll emit a low audio for that object, giving you more confirmation that there's more to this. We even saw new camp locations popping up around the map with telescopes all observing this meteor. Signs at Tilted Towers could be found like citizens preparing for the apocalypse, and that's when the comet got close enough that smaller debris around it were already starting to hit the island. They tended to fall near where at least one player was, and they would demolish everything in their paths. Your builds, natural map builds, nothing stops them until they hit dirt, and if they hit you, they can send you flying. Number 8 is Season 8. This was the season of kings. We had Ice King, the Fire King, and the Pirate King, all trying to make their claim on the Battle Royale island. Now, I'll be honest to admit that I was definitely on the Pirates team myself, because at the time, you just couldn't beat that entire tropical paradise they brought with them. Lazy Links, all the way over to Wailing Woods, was now a completely new map with volcanoes, lagoons, and an upgraded tomato worshipping location we all know as Sunny Steps. We even had animated birds flying around the skies, which was new, but a nice little touch. Had a bit of strange battle pass though, as one of the best skins, Blackheart, was at the number 1 spot, yet one of the least liked, Lux, was at tier 100. And we're still waiting on a supposed secret that might make her better, but I think that theory sailed out the harbor at this point. But as an avid fan of the medieval characters like the Black Knight, I had to have Ember as part of that collection, the perfect elf to add to your little fellowship. But let's not forget about the Ballers. They were a trip, balanced out towards the end though. Then as the season progresses, we see the emergence of dig sites that revealed the vault below Loot Lake and gave us the dreaded unvaulting event. Number 7 is Season 9. So how did you honestly feel about Season 9? I think this was definitely a time that Epic Games got most of their criticisms, but I think this was most likely due to the World Cup tournament. For me personally, the beginning was one of my favorites. That intro with Peely and Blondie in the bunker was hilarious. We got the Peely skin, even got a robot chicken skin called Sentinel. These were some big changes, but it made a lot of sense that they were rescued from the bunker, and you see the futuristic changes that had happened in the meantime outside and on the island. It was the type of place you imagine the future will be like as a kid. Big, tall, and sleek neon-covered buildings. They had some flying cars around the buildings. I think it actually would have been perfect. There were new slipstreams around the renovated Neo Tilted and Mega Mall locations with one big slipstream going around most of the map. Other than the already aforementioned Battle Pass skins, all the others, including the level 100 Vendetta skin, were just a bit average. Nothing special about them, really, unless they suit your tastes. Now, the storyline had us all on our seats, wondering when this giant monster was going to appear, and the Islanders even built their very own giant mecha to fight in what was one of the best Fortnite in-game events I personally witnessed. And in at number 6, we've got Season 7. It was the season to be merry and jolly for Santa, or what Epic Games called Sergeant Winter, was coming to the Fortnite Battle Royale island, but probably not in the way most of us wished, because the presents he bought with him were intended to invade the island, coming in on a giant iceberg that crashes into the island, completely entombing the previous southwest area of the map in snow and ice. The main giant polar peak block of ice began to melt, and layer by layer released what was trapped within. The Infinity Blade that completely destroyed normal matches, but was awesome for those wielding it.
Oh my God!
To be right now, he
That's
catches
another
someone
elimination.
else.
He's on a killing spree. Oh
crushing
my
players.
word!
Then we had the mini Ice King event in which he released himself from what appeared to be an energy field of sorts, and even some dragon eggs were discovered in some prison cells further down. One of the biggest parts about Season 7 I don't think anyone will be able to forget about is the introduction of planes. Like all things, they were great at first, but when you realize just how unbalanced it really was, and then you realize that number 5, yeah, we're actually going to just cut away from that. Season 10. Okay, so Season 10 hasn't exactly had the easiest start compared to the last few seasons. I definitely feel like there's one thing in particular that is upsetting a lot of the community. You can most likely guess it, the Brutes. I really love the whole idea behind this, considering we just saw the giant mecha fight and now we get our own, but again, it's way too unbalanced. There's a lot of awesome things about these Brutes, but those missiles need to be fixed. They don't even need to be able to see you, and it doesn't matter if you have full health and shield. If they get in close enough, it's endgame. Besides that, though, it actually looks like a real good season for map changes. Yeah, sure, it seems to be starting slow with nothing too big going on until just the other day. Tilted Town emerges after the time bubble changed location. This season is probably on top for small changes, though. They're everywhere, hidden in all corners of the map, teasing us at what's to come, and I'm sure shortly after this video, we'll start to see that orb making its move. The story aside, though, can we just take a second to give a round of applause for Epic Games revamping the OG Black Knight with the new Ultimate Knight? That skin is a beast. It looks as though a lot of the skins you'll be seeing throughout Season 10 will be OG skins with the new style. Number 4 is Season 2. Now, this was the season where we really got to see the beginnings of how seriously Epic Games were taking the success with Fortnite. And Season 2 was actually the first season to get a Battle Pass. Featured a mostly medieval style theme, which is where that previously mentioned Black Knight came from. The map itself had been fairly empty with only a few points of interest and green fields everywhere. Throughout the season, we had Hifty Shafts, Snobby Shores, Junk Junction, Haunted Hills, and yes, this was also the first season that we got any form of Tilted Towers, the Season 2 and most other seasons' main hotspot. We didn't have much in the way of storyline at this time, as Epic Games seemed to want to give Season 2 the time to focus on some map changes and in-game mechanics, making sure they had things good enough before introducing the grand story we have now. But in number 3, we've got Season 5. So Fortnite apparently went all out in this season as they crossed the Fortnite world with real life. Towards the end of Season 4, a few things had been rifted away. No one knew what was going on. But then the Season 5 trailer came out and showed the Durburger in a real desert in America, which people could actually go and find for themselves. In the Fortnite map, new locations rifted in and on random locations around the map. Viking Village just got dropped on top of the mountain. Tomato Town was blinked out of existence by a time-traveling tomato that in turn had the butterfly effect of creating Tomato Temple. The biggest change was the desert biome that came with Paradise Palms. But what really grabbed the hearts of the community was a giant purple cube that spawned in the desert through some purple lightning that came from a giant rift. We called it Kevin. He slowly toppled and slid his way across the map, burning runes into the ground until eventually sinking into Loot Lake and turning it into Jello, which brings us to number 2, which is Season 6. Everyone thought Kevin had dissolved, but during the beginning of Season 6, we saw the middle island from Loot Lake rise up from the ground with Kevin attached to its underneath in what became known as the floating island. This island drifted around the map, going back to those rune spots, and appeared to be leeching energy from the island until it grew these giant purple crystals, which later turned out to be for zombies from Fortnitemares. The whole season was an adventure, and even the Battle Pass had a very Fable-like feel to it with our first transformative werewolf skin. and the classic little Red Riding Hood skin, who was actually called Fable. But towards the end, we all began to see the giant iceberg in the distance that would be here for Season 7, and the floating island was making its way back to Loot Lake, where we had another, and one of the most surreal in-game butterfly events. Kevin the Cube exploded and transported everyone to another realm, which we met the Rift butterfly creatures. It was a nice touching moment, so we were all transported back to find Loot Lake looking more like Kevin's Stonehenge. A giant rainbow bubble encircled Loot Lake, and new life was growing all around. And in number 1, we've got Season 1. So let's be real for a minute. Nothing really happened in Season 1, but after all, it was a brand new game, and I doubt anyone could have predicted its huge success. The developers were most likely just hoping that Season 1 went smoothly, making fixes and patches here and there, so I can't imagine what it was like in the first couple seasons, preparing for the storyline we have now. But even though not much happened, just a few in-game mechanic adjustments, it'll always be known as one of the best seasons of all time for a variety of reasons. Maybe you just like the simpler times and a more open map to the high density points of interest we have now. Maybe you prefer the older mechanics to the thousands of updates they've made since. Although I can't imagine anyone misses not having first shot accuracy. I personally just miss every single one of us being bots. These were simpler times, but we don't talk about them. We don't talk about it. But you know what we do talk about? We talk about the top 10 secret Fortnite Season 10 Easter eggs that you missed, which if you click that video on